Good evening and welcome to today's edition of Keeping It Real with Rammona. Today I have an amazing guest with me. Her name is Samara Mohan. Hi Samara,
Hi,
how are you?
I'm good. I'm just so excited to be here and get a chance to talk to you.
It's my pleasure to have you on this program today on my conversation series, which is Keeping It Real with Ramona. I'm going to take a couple of minutes and introduce Samara. Samara is a student of grade 11 currently. She's someone, even though she's a young person who's 16 years of age, she's someone who's very, very passionate about social justice and human rights. And Samara's been creating change and advocating on various issues. Basically, she loves to write poems and she likes to write essays. And she uses her Instagram to create awareness around different issues which are close to her heart. Some of those are body positivity, intersectional oppression, feminism, equality, discrimination, and bullying. So like I said, she's very, very fond of writing. Poems and essays are what she normally writes, and she uses her writings to, make posts and spread awareness. And what her hope through her writing and through her Instagram channel is that more people become aware and are open to embracing differences between, each other and accepting people for who they are. So that's something I absolutely love, Samara, that, you are someone who is actually, respectful of the fact that all of us are different, all of us are unique, and, you want to celebrate that difference and that uniqueness in all of us. So it's wonderful to see young people, doing that. So thank you so much for being, that beautiful change in the world. Samara has other interests which include math, gymnastics, dance, academics, and calligraphy. So I think, Samara, calligraphy is also something that you've been using to create change. Isn't that right?
Yeah, actually, I like to use even my other interests, which might not be directly related to advocacy, in a way that I can create change. So with my calligraphy,
Okay.
I've been trying to, do different things.
How wonderful. So, Samara is also a big proponent of learning and spreading knowledge. She's actually devoted a lot of time, whether it is, after school or, at her own time, where she's actually been teaching maths and dance after school to underprivileged children, differently abled children. And also in her own current school, she's a teacher aide for her favorite subject, which is maths. And I think that's something that she enjoys a lot. She's also taught dance at two summer camps in 2018 and 2019. So, Samara, like I said, it's my privilege to have you here. And at such a young age, you're someone who is working at spreading change and, embracing the differences that all of us are. So, we already have a couple of comments here on the screen. Uh, let's see. I mean, there were quite a few people, I think, who said that they were looking forward to this conversation. Sangeeta Das Banerjee said, so looking forward to this. And Mitch Hunter said, same here, super excited to see you both. Um, Arjun has said, super excited to see this, looking forward. And now that we are live, we have few comments that have already come in, Samara. There's Kamal Jean saying, hi, Rammona and Samara. This is awesome, she says. And Arjun says, hi, Rammona and Samara. Samara, I'm so impressed with your credentials at such a young age. So, Samara, tell me a little bit more about, I know you're a young person, you're 16 years old. What is it that really inspired you to start writing on all these different topics?
Okay, so growing up wasn't easy. I mean, it's not easy for anyone, but I went through a lot socially at school. I used to be bullied a bit. I just used to have a tough time, and I also had I have an anxiety disorder, and I had a really rough patch in my life, which really seeing the people who helped me and seeing how much kindness still exists in the world. I thought it's my responsibility to pay it forward and to do things which can impact people in a positive way.
Okay, so that's amazing. So basically, Samara, what you're saying is that you experience some, rough patches or difficulties, and learning from those experiences, you actually, instead of kind of going the other way around, you decided that you had gone through something and you wanted to work at helping change that in the world. So that's incredible. That it goes to show your strength of character. That even though you went through a hard time, um, and you said you were bullied in school, you decided that this was something important that you wanted to work at changing. So that is really really very cool, because it really depends. Sometimes we can go the other way. If we've gone through a hardship, we can decide that everything's wrong with the world, for example, or something's wrong with whatever's happening with me, and that there's nothing that's going to help me change this. So what is it that made you feel? I mean, I know you said that you wanted to be that agent of change in the world today. And But what is it along the way that kept you inspired, in the last few years? I think you've been doing this for the last few years, if I'm not mistaken. So along the way, what were the things that inspired you?
Okay, so actually, yeah, I think I started my quest for activism like around 3, 4 years ago. Um,
Okay.
And I would like to acknowledge that I'm very privileged. When I did go through a rough patch, I had my family with me. I had a couple of my friends who were always there. And a lot of people don't have that. So the fact that I was able to come out of it and change that just shows that I had a great support system. And I do want to stand up for those people who maybe aren't able to do that. A lot of people don't have access to um, just even like talking to someone about their problems, or even they don't have access to healthcare. Like if you are going through stuff, I'm a big believer in therapy, and a lot of people don't have those opportunities. And I think because I was given like I was lucky enough to have like such a supportive environment, I was able to come out of it and change.
How wonderful. So tell me, one of the things I know about you is that you started dancing at a very young age. And I actually personally have this belief that any form of exercise or anything that you are passionate about, if you continue practicing that, it itself is a stress buster. So what are your views about dance? Tell me about your dance journey from the time you started as a young child. What is it that inspired you, to keep dancing? And how do you feel, about dance as such? What does it do for you?
Well, I started dancing when I was 4 years old. I danced like jazz, ballet, and contemporary. My main focus is like jazz and a bit of contemporary. So, dance has actually been great because I have been able to express myself in a way in which I don't always have to speak, because we don't always feel like we aren't always conditioned to speak. We don't have to like always discuss something. If we're going through something, we can always show it through other forms of art. And I think that's very important. And I think physical exercise and doing your hobbies in general just keeps you going. Like, due to the entire lockdown and quarantine, I haven't been getting that much physical exercise in dance, and I haven't been able to move that much. And I have seen that does really impact you, because having that outlet to express yourself is really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. So I agree with you on that. I think, with the lockdown, or, with the whole pandemic that's been on, a lot of things, a lot of patterns for a lot of people have changed. And that includes physical exercise. But it's interesting that, you started dance at a young age and you continued with it. And I think it's something, you seem to be fairly passionate about. I believe that there was some YouTube channel you had started with some other children. So tell me about that, because I think that's something you continued for a while. So tell me why you started it, how you went about it, and what it's done for you. I think you were able to still maintain some friendships through that. So tell me a little bit about your dance YouTube channel that you started as a young person.
Okay, so when I was young, maybe like when I was 10, I started this channel where
Uh-huh.
we basically lip sync and like to songs, but my main focus was editing because I really enjoyed like putting like different filters, editing videos, making them creative. And through that, I met a couple of my internet friends, and we started a channel
Uh-huh.
together. And I think that really inspired me because I'm still friends with a lot of those people, and even though like we might not like,
Okay.
we still don't make, we no longer make those videos, but we still have this connection, which is so special. Because I think after we stopped making those videos, we all were going through individual stuff, in our lives. But it was like really ironic
Sure.
and really special as to how we were all there for each other. And I really appreciate those two, three best friends I have made through that platform.
That's awesome. And it's interesting that I think all the children who are involved in the YouTube channel were in different countries. So that's really cool that you guys were able to, do that for whatever time you did, and you've been able to maintain a friendship and be there for each other. That's amazing. So I have a couple of comments here that I wanted to share. Samara Sangeeta Das Banerjee says she's a superbly talented dancer, and Ritu Bhari says great invitation. Sangeeta Das Banerjee, I already shared. I think she said she's a superbly talented dancer. And then let's see. These kids are so enterprising. More power to you, she says. So thank you for talking about that. Tanveer Mullah here has said, "I'm so proud of you, Samara." So I just thought I'll take a couple of minutes and share some of the comments that our viewers have already made. And if anyone has any questions for Samara, feel free to put it in the comments and I'll try my best to get to your questions. So now, Samara, coming to the fact that, you've started, writing on your Instagram handle, and I've shared that, in this post. So I hope, that's something that, more people, become aware of the fact that there are young people like you spreading awareness and working to change, our planet to a kinder and more gentle place for other people. So, what are the things that you write about mostly on your Instagram channel?
So I identify as an intersectional feminist because intersectionality, I think it is one of the core theories to changing the world. For those who might not be familiar with it, it talks about how different identities of us, like of ourselves, like race, gender, sexuality, like sexual orientation, disability, religion, can play a part in how we are treated in society. We might be discriminated against, we might be privileged based on these identities. And yeah, so that's like my main focus. I talk about several issues such as women's rights, men's rights too, because that's equally important. I really enjoy talking about mental health awareness because I feel that's a really important thing to highlight. The LGBTQ plus community and how like they deserve so many more rights than they're given right now, and even a lot of current issues, mainly relating to Indian and American politics.
Oh, interesting. Samara, tell me, you mentioned a couple of things that you write about, and thank you so much for talking about the fact that you also, talk about men's rights. And it seems that intersectional feminism is something that embraces, the differences between all of us, and is, part of. Well, I don't know. I think there are different types of feminism that exists, but some people have a view of feminism as being very very aggressive and anti men. So what you talked about seemed something which was not really anti men. It was more about anything or anyone who's a little different and is going through a situation or experiences something that's tough for them. You're kind of intersectional feminism is working towards helping people across all barriers. So it's not limited to just men or women or to people of a certain sexual orientation, or someone of a certain color. So what I wanted to talk about now is, because I know in the last few months, and this is something I think you've posted about as well, there was a hashtag hashtag that was trending a lot, and it was hashtag Black Lives Matter. I wanted to ask you something because I've read quite a few posts by different people on this particular hashtag, or all the different reasons why this hashtag was trending or has been trending in the last few months. So there were varying views. I wanted to ask you something because some people, I found that a lot of people have written something about it's not just hashtag Black Lives Matter, it's hashtag all lives matter. Why are we only talking about black lives? Can you shed some light on what exactly is this particular hashtag Black Lives Matter, and what would you say to someone who would say all lives matter?
Okay, so first I wanted to discuss like what you said about people thinking of feminism being centered towards women. And I mean, that's
Yeah.
how it started off. We have like the first wave of feminism and like the wave for suffrage and like voting rights. But so back in the days, feminism used to be white feminism, and that is something we're all trying to like take back as a feminist community, because feminism can't be based on race. If you are a feminist, then you support everyone. And in fact, feminism isn't just for men and women, it's even for people who don't identify within those boxes. We have not non-binary folks and just people in general who we support. um, the aim of feminism is to make a better world and to empower everyone. Now, a lot of people ask, why is the name for like equality feminism? And my answer to that is, why is the name of history his story? Why isn't it her story? If men can have that, why can't women have this one movement? So yeah, and I think, yeah, it's really important to empower women and people in general, because that just makes the world much better place. Okay, and now in regards to Black Lives Matter. So Black Lives Matter is a movement which has been going on for over like 5-7 years, and I think this is the time that we have like seen the most attention towards it, which is actually great. And so recently, what happened, for those who might not be informed, George Floyd was murdered by police officers in the United States for no reason other than his race. So he was sat on by a police officer who suffocated him, and he kept saying that I can't breathe, I can't breathe. Um, but sadly, he was murdered. And although in this case, the police was charged and fired from their jobs. If we look at the case of Breonna Taylor, which also happened recently, she was murdered because of her race again. She was a black woman, and she still hasn't gotten justice. There have been no arrests in her case. No, like even the cops who killed her weren't fired from their jobs. And I think it's really hurtful seeing a community like this where you're walking on the road and you're being killed solely based on your race. And there are several statistics that support this. It is not just black people randomly saying stuff. There is a huge, deep history behind this movement. And I feel like people need to be aware. It's nothing to do with hating like white people. I mean,
So
but it's just trying to get out like the notion of white supremacy which still exists in our society. We say slavery has been abolished, but it hasn't. It seriously hasn't. And in regards to All Lives Matter was a supposed movement started to counter Black Lives Matter. Now, we all know all lives matter, but all lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter. And the only reason all lives matter started was to suppress the voices of Black people. Because when they were speaking up about their experiences of being a person of color, they were being undermined by like, oh, I've also experienced, like, supposing there's a white woman, she might say that I've also experienced, a lot of hate and bullying. But what people don't realize is you might not have we all go through tough times, everyone experiences something, but it's you haven't experienced it solely based on your race. You may have experienced it due to your gender, due to other identities, but
Sure.
with your race, something which you can't change, that it's really important to acknowledge that Black Lives Matter is a movement which is only centered around empowering everybody. And once Black lives
Yeah.
start mattering, only then all lives will matter.
Yeah.
And we need
And
to
I
look out
think,
for,
sorry,
yeah, sorry.
go ahead.
I
Go
was saying,
ahead.
and we need to look out for all Black lives. A lot of Black lives movements, like it has been great, but I think it's really important to even talk about like Black people with intersectional identities, the lives of Black
Sure.
trans women, the lives of Black women, the lives of disabled Black individuals. They're often very undermined.
Yeah. So I have a couple of more comments here. Utkarsh says your Instagram handle is remarkable. And Jyotika Sandeep Bedi has said you will change the world. That comment was for you, Samara. Samara, thank you for talking about that. But I also wanted to ask you something um, about the same thing, which is, yeah, I've understood, what you've said about hashtag Black Lives Matter and hashtag um all lives matter. And I'm glad, to have this conversation with you today, because this is something, I've been watching different, people's thoughts on this, and I think this
Um,
was something that
and one
needed to
more
be
thing
put
I
out
would
into
like
the
to
world.
Yeah, one more thing I would like to add in over there is this time, luckily, the movement has gotten so much attention because we've all been at home, and that plays a huge factor
Yeah.
in it. And I think staying
True.
up to date on this news, even when we're not at home, is very important.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, Samara, coming closer to home, because it's like, I understand, more about, this whole movement more clearly, though I've read quite a bit about it. But like I said, I think it was important to have this part of the conversation, so anyone who's watching this now or later uh, is aware of what are the differences and what it really means. Because sometimes it's like randomly we look at something and we just, come to a judgment automatically that this is what it means. So thank you so much for that clarity. But it's not only, I mean, I'm not trying to undermine what's happening with Black people at all, but it's not only Black people that are discriminated against, right? If you look at a country like India, there is a lot of discrimination here too, whether it is based on your ethnicity, whether it's based on, your economic background, whether it's based on what people say doesn't exist any longer, which is the caste system. But we all know that it still plays a role. So, what about things like that? I mean, is that something you also are passionate about? Is that something you also talk about? Are kids your age even aware of all of this? And do you have discussions with your friends or other young people or older people around these topics?
Yeah, so I definitely feel conversations are the most important. I love having them with people of my age, younger and older, because we all live in this world together and we all should talk about these things rather than hiding it. Actually, so I am an American citizen, but I am Indian by birth. Like I was born in India. I mean, I was raised in India. I was born in the U.S. I've lived in India. So I've grown up in like this multicultural world, and it's been interesting because I've got to see both sides. You know, the side of America, which everyone thinks is very liberating, and the side of India, which people sometimes view as conservative. But India definitely has still there is a lot of discrimination that exists here. It like gender is a huge problem all across the world, but even in India, we have the caste system, like you mentioned. It still exists, and people who say it doesn't, they probably just ignorant or haven't experienced it. But I think it's really important to have conversations about what India actually was. And so, one thing I love talking about is decolonization. So, as everyone knows, India
Uh-huh.
was colonized by the British, and they became independent in became independent in 1949. And so that was actually something I really believe in, because one law I have been closely looking at is 377. It was the law
Yeah,
that criminalizes homosexual behavior. And I'm a huge advocate for LGBTQ plus rights because everyone deserves a chance to love. And that's all it is. I
absolutely.
mean, it's nothing
Yeah,
relating to like hurting people or something. And what I noticed is back in Indian scriptures and in our history, we had a lot to do with different people of different genders, of different like third gender or like different sexual orientations. But when the British came, this law called 377 was established, which now it's
what took
amended.
place? Yeah,
Luckily, in yeah, we got it out of here, which
yeah,
was really great. But
yeah,
it was established when the British ruled India, and a lot of people aren't aware of that. And the United Kingdom and the British as a whole, like Europe, mainly decriminalized homosexuality way before India got to it. So our notion of like homophobia actually came from a very different place than we thought it was. It wasn't from Indian culture or like what Indian culture was. It was actually something we had been taught. And I think that's
yeah,
the case with a lot of stuff. We're taught racism. We see racism. We're taught like discriminatory things, and that's what we learn.
yeah, true. But that's really interesting, Samara, that you did all that research and you're aware of, where that sort of phobia came from. So, I mean, kudos to your generation for actually uh, doing that, for actually first researching why, a law like 377 is in place, and actually willing to talk about this. Is this, I want to ask you, because you're still in school. I know even as adults people struggle with so many things, whether it's mental health, whether if they have a different sexual orientation and they're not comfortable coming out with it. What do you generally find is, I know again it's going to be very mixed, I'm sure, but your generation, what do you find, people in your generation more tolerant, or how do you feel about that?
Okay, so my generation, I believe, is one of the most resilient generations. We have seen so many small changes over the past few years, whether it be Malala, Greta Thunberg, or like the whole Parkland shooting, like laws on like getting laws on gun control. That's what the students were advocating for, and I think our generation is really trying to be accepting. Now, obviously, not everyone is. A lot of people have
Sure.
those mindsets because they're taught that. But I have seen that even if they have been taught that, they are way more open to conversation, which is very helpful. And another thing which I've seen talking across like my generation and some of my friends who might not be at like the same political standpoint as I come from is that they believe that even though they might not ever like feel that way or support like might have never like experienced racism or like colorism, but they still understand it and they want to empathize with it to the best of their abilities. They want to amplify those voices and they want to do anything they can to learn. They're willing to talk about it, which is so special.
Yeah,
Though, of course, we
wonderful.
do have those few kids and people in this generation who are a bit still like have discriminatory views, and that's always going to be there. It just remains as to how much we can lobby and organize for human rights.
Yeah, true. So I have a comment here from Sangeeta. She says, "There's hope for the world. Kudos to your generation, Samara. We adults have a lot to learn from you." And there were just two, three more comments I thought I'd quickly share. Uh, so there's Kamal Jean, who said, "You're so right and wise at such a young age." And I think we have a audience from different parts of the world. I can see some comments coming in from Indonesia and from the US and other countries. Mitz has also said, "Your words and wisdom are beyond your age." Excellent point regarding the effect of colonization colonialism on Indian mindset. Yeah, I think that was really important because sometimes people just think that what happens is like people, it could be a child, it could be an adult, just take a cause, and because the cause is happening around you, you're kind of getting carried away, and you're kind of just following the trend, so to speak. But obviously, if you've gone into the research bit and the reasons for why a law was created and why that phobia around that law is there, and you're able to differentiate and talk about it, that's really, really wonderful. uh, I have Naira here saying you're amazing, keep shining, Sam. And Utkarsh says, really essential point. It's so true that people are not aware about 377, and it's an important matter to be aware of and to talk. Samara, the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is mental health, because I know that's something that you've been advocating about for a long time. I believe you also worked with an organization as their talking head. And tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what exactly does it mean to be a talking head of a mental health organization for teenagers? And tell me about mental health. Like, what is the state of mental health? I know with the lockdown and the corona situation these days, a lot of people are struggling on different levels because of different reasons. But even in regular times before the pandemic, mental health is something which is often ignored, it's often sidelined. So what are your views on it, and what is it that you were doing as the talking head of this organization?
Okay, so I find it really funny and sort of course, ignorant and stupid how mental health is stigmatized, because we all have a mental health. We all feel sad sometimes, we all feel happy, we all feel excited. That's part of our mental health and like the process our brain goes through. There's a difference between mental health and mental illness. So mental health is something everyone has. It's just your mental well-being. How are you feeling when generally what's going on in your brain? That's your mental health. Mental illness is when there is something which is what's so-called abnormal with your brain. I don't know if that's how I best describe it, but it is an illness. And it's just like any other physical illness. We get fever, it's pretty much the same. When you have an anxiety attack, you end up throwing up some of the time. And even if that's not the case, you're very distressed, and it is the same. So I think it's very, very important to stress on the fact that we all have a mental health. Some might suffer from mental illness, and it's actually more than we think. 1 in 4 people can potentially have a diagnosable mental illness. And so I
Wow,
think
that's a huge number, Samara. 1 in 4 people have a mental health issue, or can be diagnosed with some sort of illness, and we're still living in a time where these topics, people kind of want to brush them aside or don't want to talk about them.
And
Sorry, you were saying something.
what's really sad is no one is going to show up for your mental health until the end, until you are at that state where you can't take it anymore, or you might attempt suicide. You might just be in a state where you can't get out of bed. But when you're crying once or having that little bit of anxiety, a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of parents, a lot of kids, it's just not normalized, and it needs to be in our society. We need to talk about it. We need to know how to handle these situations just like we know how to handle a fever.
Yeah, that's true. I just wanted to say something here, Samara, because when you started talking about mental health, that we all have mental health, and you were differentiating between mental health and mental illness. Uh, I think you used some phrase to describe a mental illness, but I just wanted to say here, anyone can have an issue with their mental health, or develop a condition. It can be temporary, it can be something that's long lasting, which would be termed as a mental illness. And there may be some label that comes in because you decide to go to a psychiatrist or to a psychologist. But I just wanted to say here that you should not limit yourself with the labels that you get, because even if you've developed some health condition, which may be given any term, in terms of mental health, there is all types of help available. Of course, if you're on medication, you need to continue with that, but there's a lot of other integrative therapy that's available now. And the great thing is that more and more people are willing to talk about their mental health or their mental health illness, and are willing to seek help. but there's still people who face a lot of ridicule, or feel ashamed of talking about it, or when they talk about it they don't get the support that they deserve. So I think this is something that is really really important, Samara. And I appreciate the fact that you uh, as a young person, and other people as part of your generation are willing to talk about this and are willing to spread the awareness and understand it on a much deeper level than I think a lot of people do. Because the general tendency is to just say that it's going to be okay, you'll be fine. But if you're going through anxiety, if you're going through stress, if you're going through depression, uh, you need to get the help that you deserve. And I think it's important to be able to feel that it's okay to reach out for help. What would you say to people who are experiencing any of the things that I talked about, but are still afraid to even tell their own family or their close friends? Is there something you want to say to them, Samara?
So, first of all, I would like to say that there's a lot of stigma surrounding health problems in general. Sometimes, when we have a physical health condition too, we're labeled and ridiculed because of it, which is, of course, unfair. But with mental health, I feel like people who have mental illness have it really hard because they have they have this illness to start off with, and they have people who don't understand. A lot of people don't get it, which I mean, it's understandable because it's not talked about in our society. But if you are going through mental illness or any mental health issue for that matter, it doesn't have to be prolonged. You need to reach out, you need to talk to someone. It doesn't matter like what people say. I know when you're sick, it does really matter. Like you feel it matters. But once you get better, you're going to realize how much more valuable it is to get the help you need than to be praised by a few people for just staying strong and being yourself. Because although it's great to be independent and strong, sometimes we have to lean on others for support. And I think that's the greatest thing with mental illness I've learned, like having like anxiety and being depressed in the past. um, Having like going to therapy is one thing which helps immensely, and I can't tell you guys how many lives it has saved and how much like good work some people are doing. I mean, of course not everyone is informed, but when you are seeking the correct type of help, you can get better so much faster than you would ever expect. Having family that understands you, and by family I don't mean biological family only. Sometimes we aren't that comfortable reaching out to our biological family, and we don't have that good like a relationship with them, or they might not understand. Reaching out to friends, anyone you can get professional help is great if you can access that, which I believe should be accessible towards everyone. But yeah, I think what's actually helped me with my struggle is my friends and family. I was lucky enough to have a family who stood by me through everything, no matter what I've been through. They always loved and supported me, and I really appreciated that. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. I mean, it's always great if you're surrounded by people who love you and are willing to support you through anything. But like I said, sometimes people don't have that. People don't have that. They don't have that support system, or sometimes they're just too scared to reach out and seek support. So Myth said here, hi Samara, Anika here. I'm really loving your talk. So we have some young people joining us also, watching you, which is wonderful because you guys are the change makers and you are the future, for us. So it's great that that there are kids who are watching this as well. Sorry, you were saying something, Samara.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about how even if you don't have friends and family you're close to, there are a lot of people who are there for you. There are organizations, great organizations you can reach out to. I personally use my Instagram as a platform where anyone can safely talk to me about their issues, and I try to help them to the best way possible. Like you had mentioned, I did head a talking team at an organization, and I think that was a great experience because I got to help so many people and see how prominent this issue was for everyone. People, I had people I knew personally reach out to me saying they were going through a tough time when on the outside their life to me looked extremely perfect. And I think it just having these conversations, sharing your problems with people just brings you closer, because as humans, we all experience problems, such big problems. Everyone in their life goes through struggle. Some may be more than others, but reaching out, talking about it is most important.
Yeah. Thank you, Samara. Sangeeta Kocher says, "What a brilliant conversation. So proud of you, Samara." So, I have a few more comments that I'll share shortly. Samara, tell me about calligraphy. When did you start with calligraphy? And again, that is something. It's like a creative outlet. So, are you an advocate of that? Like, do you feel that young people or older people as well should have a creative outlet? What are your thoughts around that?
Okay, so calligraphy is something which is really special to me. I've always had a passion for art and writing in interesting ways. But when I came to ninth grade, it was time for me to choose a hobby at school, and I chose calligraphy. And honestly, I learned so much about writing in different styles, and so much about myself. It taught me how to concentrate and be patient. And calligraphy is something which I can do where usually when I'm anxious or I'm having a stressful day, I start writing just anything. And I feel so liberated doing it, because I know that, like, writing for me, like I said, I also write poems and essays and different things. But even writing simple words in a fancy way shows how much you care about a certain cause. And that has been amazing. And another thing I want to talk about in the future, like I will probably do an Instagram segment in this later, is that just because someone says you can't do something doesn't mean you can't. I sometimes struggle with my handwriting. I generally have good handwriting, but sometimes it's a bit hard for me. But that doesn't mean I can't do calligraphy. And I think, yeah, that's those labels are really important to break.
Yeah. So, what is the way to break the labels, Samara? Like I did talk a little bit about labels before. What is the way for me to break a label if I've been given a label? What is the way I have to go about breaking that label?
Okay, so what I believe with labels is that some are empowering to a certain extent and some are disempowering. It's you who chooses. If you don't like being labeled as a certain thing, it's your job to speak out. But at the flip side, some people might enjoy their labels, and that's perfectly okay. You aren't conditioned to be labeled, and you're not conditioned to like fit into a certain box. And I think it's really important to speak out about it. If you're not comfortable with something, just say, like, labels sometimes put limitations on you, and I think breaking those limitations, it doesn't have to always be opposing it. Sometimes it's just be like, it's just like, I know, but I don't care if you say that I'm a woman and I can't do this. I know I can. It doesn't always have to be something which resists it, but it could be, and that's honestly your choice to make.
Okay. So, Naira says, "You're so inspiring, girl." And Isha says, "Kudos to Samara, proud of you." Simi Basint is also watching with us, and she says, "Awesome, Samara." So, Samara, we're in the last few minutes of our conversation. I would love for you to share, one of your writings with us, whatever it is that you'd like to share, whether it's a short essay or a poem. It would be wonderful if you'd be willing to share something with us.
Sure, I'm just gonna find it, but I absolutely enjoy writing. And I've always felt like I'm not a great writer because, on essays in school, I haven't previously, now I'm getting better, but I haven't previously received the best grades. But that doesn't mean anything. I use my writing for fun, and I know it impacts people. That's what's important. Okay, so here's a poem I wrote about being a girl and my experience being a woman in a society where women were so historically oppressed, and we still are, like, not only women but everyone in general. um and so this is my experience of realizing what it's like, the truth, because I grew up in a household which was so inclusive. My mom always taught me that just because you're a girl doesn't mean you can't do this. Just because you're Indian or you're a person of color doesn't mean you're any less. You're as beautiful, as capable. But I think so I never experienced that in my own household. But when I went outside into the world, we all see that reality. So here it goes. It's called being a girl. I never knew why being a woman was so hard until I got scarred. I never knew why women were treated any less until my own life became a mess. Inside my house, I always felt equal until the real world was revealed. I didn't know that sexual abuse existed until I found out and then felt completely twisted. I didn't know about the differences until I saw the bitterness. Girls saying stuff like, oh, your clothes are cheap, instead of focusing on the truth, which is deep. No matter which sort of girl you are still a star. Boys saying stuff like, which girl do I play today, instead of fighting for equal pay. Trans girls, girls of color, and differently abled girls being discriminated against instead of getting the love they deserve. Catcalling, rape, not being allowed to make choices for women still exist. Then how can you say women are just as equal in today's world? Things might be better than before, but they still aren't okay. You cannot say that equality exists until you allow your child to dress as anything, no matter the gender they identify as. You cannot say the world is equal till all girls and boys and humans are loved no matter what. The day you stop speaking about how boys are better at sports or how girls should cook, you cannot have equality till every girl feels empowered, until the moment no girl or person in general is called a coward, until there is no abuse, until the morning we wake up and discrimination hasn't caused any bad news. There is no way you are fighting alone. This world may be truly cruel, but I'm never gonna let you feel any less because I know how much importance you bring to this world. No matter how hard this is and how long this change takes, I'm gonna help till my last breath.
Thank you so much, Samara, for sharing that. And I think that's an absolutely beautiful piece of writing, and it's very, very deep. I want to thank you again so much for being here on Keeping It Real with Ramona today. And I wanted to really say that I'm so happy that there are young people like you who are changing our world in their own unique way. I wish you all the best, and I hope that whatever it is that you've started in terms of changing the world, changing things around, everything that you're passionate about. I hope that you achieve that, and the world becomes a much more gentle, loving, kind space for everyone, irrespective of their backgrounds, their color, their economic background, whatever their beliefs may be. And so super proud of the fact that at a young age you are a harbinger of change, and you're going forward with all this in this amazing, amazing manner. Thank you again, Samara, for being here today,
Thank you
and
for
keep
having
being
me.
the amazing change that you are. Thanks. Bye, Samara.
Bye.